Hey everyone, Leo with Dreaming Tree, and welcome to the assembly video for our Gnome gift box. I actually had someone in the Dreaming Tree group on Facebook ask if we were coming out with a Santa version, and I mean this is pretty close. So we're going to jump right in. When I say the Santa version, we have a scarecrow, we have a witch. This is almost Santa, pretty much. We're going to start off by putting together the lid, or his little cap. And that is made up of these two pieces. Pretty simple. We're going to take one of them. They both have tabs. And we're going to begin applying glue to the long tab here. Okay, nice and easy. And then we have a series of little overlays that are going to go on top of this. And we're debating, do we make a striped hat? Do we make a polka dot hat? We went with the stripe. Okay, we're going to take this other half and you just want to line that up as accurately as you can. Just like that. Press that down. You can fold it over onto itself at that seam. Then press down again. You'll notice that when you do that, this thing should be symmetrical and sit on top of the other layer pretty much perfectly. Okay. Make sure that that is nice and secure. And then we have a series of little overlays that we're going to put on top of this in just a moment here. First we need to close it off, and we're going to do that by applying glue to the remaining tab to make this all one solid piece. And I can already tell today is going to be one of those days where my glue dries super quick. And as we approach fall, the moisture starts to sort of dissipate, and you can just kind of tell that it's just pulling and drawing all of the moisture out of the glue. So I actually just put this down flat on my surface and grabbed the other end of the hat and just pressed it down. And that should, again, because it's symmetrical, should just automatically sort of line it up as accurately as it possibly can. Okay, so there's the main structure of the hat. I can see I've got a little bit of a gap there. I'm going to keep pressing just to make sure everything is nice and solid. There we go. And there is the beginnings of his little hat. And what we're going to do is locate. In my case, we went with this, this red glitter. Okay. And what you'll observe is that some of these have little tabs on them. Okay, these two have tabs, these two do not have tabs. Okay, these are essentially the same size, one with, one without tabs, and then this is the little cap for the top. Okay, and we're going to start at the bottom and work our way up. You want to grab the piece with the tabs first. Okay, now this is going to be a little, I wouldn't say difficult, but we do want to just make sure that we start by anchoring the center of this little piece that's folded into three with two tabs on each end. And we're going to anchor the center first. Okay, so I'm going to start here and just kind of using my finger to feel to make sure that it's flush with the bottom. And then you also want to match up where the little score marks are with the main structure, and then kind of run your finger along the rest of it just to make sure that it feels like it's in the correct spot. This is going to be flush at the bottom, just like that, and just keep pressing that into place. Just make sure that it's making good contact. Then we're going to take each end and glue that down individually, just one at a time, so we don't bite off more than we can chew. And then while we're over here, let's just throw a little bit of glue on that little tab that's there, and just focus on making sure that it's flush with the bottom. And then when we get over here, take and press that tab against that adjacent side there. Now, if you are using a white core overlay like I am, this is a glitter, you can see the white core. You can always ink this. And I found that actually using my little brushes like this, I don't know what the heck that is on there, actually helps get that ink on there a lot better than using my little felt applicator. All those little bristles do a lot of work applying especially into such a small, thin little area. If you have little brushes like that, definitely utilize them. Okay, we'll do the same thing here on this end. Make sure it's nice and flush with the edge. Press that into place like so, and then give that little tab a push. The other half of this is going to go right on top of that little tab, and that is just to eliminate any potential gaps that we may have when joining these two halves together. Okay, and there's one half of it looking sharp. Make sure those tabs are glued down. This one, I guess, I probably didn't give it enough attention. Try that again. Just make sure that is down before we go on to the next step. And you can actually, if you want, you can put that down on your surface, excuse me, and grab a little dowel or something and use that to push down. It'll kind of more evenly disperse the weight and the pressure to help it really get a good hold. Okay, just like that. And we can flip this over to the other side now. We'll grab the other piece that looks just like the other one, minus the tabs. I'm gonna hold it like this, and just like we did the first time, let's anchor the center into place. And then we'll worry about the other two sections later, once we get this in the right spot. Okay, again, flush with the bottom, and you can kind of see and feel where those little score marks are, and then also just kind of run your finger along the rest of the two side pieces just to make sure that they are also aligning nicely. You can put that on your surface as well if you'd like. Press down, make sure that that's getting a good hold, and then very gently you can take and flare this back. Make sure you're doing it evenly at the score mark, and apply your glue to the rest of this piece all the way out to the very edge, and then that is going to meet right on top of that tab from the other half of this. Okay, just very gently press that into place, and I can see that I have a tiny little bit of a gap there, which is okay because we have that little extra bit that we added on that tab to hide any little imperfections that may arise. Okay, and going over to the other half, put that down, making sure that it's flush with the bottom of the hat. This side ended up looking a little bit more even, and that's okay. All right, so that is that. Just make sure that since we're gluing glitter on top of glitter, sometimes it requires a few extra seconds to ensure that everything stays in place, and that looks nice. Okay, so we're gonna work our way up now. We've got one more, and you'll notice that there are a series of little score marks here, and that is to help you with the positioning of this one. The bottom of this strip is gonna go on top. The score line should be at the bottom of this little, in my case, we have a glitter overlay. And then of course, we're gonna just start with the center just to make sure that that gets anchored correctly. So let's do that. Again, use those little score marks as your guide. And then also make sure that the score marks that connect these two other sections line up with the folds, and everything just sort of sits as naturally as possible. Should kind of fit that shape. Okay, and just continue holding that in place. And then take a look here, make sure that the rest of this is also following the remainder of the score lines. In my case, it is. It's doing good. Okay, just hold that in place for a moment to very gently peel this back. And you can apply your glue to the remainder of one of the sides. Doesn't matter which side you do at this point. And then also, while you're there, throw a little bit of glue on that tab. Again, you know why it's there. And I'm just kind of holding the tab over the edge there, and then just very gently pressing the rest of this down. And just be patient. If you're using cardstock, this process will probably go a little bit quicker for you, but because I'm using glitter, I just know that it does take a little more time for everything to bind. All right, moving on to the last little section of this piece. Don't forget that little tab there. And fold that over gently. Make sure it's following that little score mark over here as well. Making contact on the surface of the hat structure all the way throughout. And just be patient. There we go. Just like that. Looking good. All right. Tabs look and seem to be in place, so we're going to head over to this side. And before we put anything down, just kind of give it a visual. Make sure that you've got it in the right spot. And again, we'll begin by anchoring just the center. Don't overdo it with the glue here. And that's true 99% of the time we're working. You want to take it easy with the glue. Kind of fold them over. Make sure that it's sitting nice and flat on this surface, and that the folds are matched up with the folds of the main structure. Press that down, take a look, and just kind of see where they're going to end up, and that looks perfect. Okay, so I think that one's good. Let's gently peel that back and apply our glue. Make sure you get it all the way out to the very edge of this one. Then bring it over. And with this one here, once it's lined up, put that down on your surface and press from the inside. It'll kind of expedite the process, I think. You got the table kind of pushing up, helping you. There we go. And we'll go over to this side, flare that out. And it doesn't really matter if you start from the inside and work your way out or vice versa. It's all the same. Just want to make sure we get the glue on there. And drop that into place, like so. Once we have it aligned, put that on your surface and press down from the inside. That'll keep everything nice and clean. Sometimes when you push things while holding it in midair, you have a tendency to potentially warp things or bend or fold paper, and I want to try to avoid that if possible. There we go. Looks nice. And then since it is symmetrical, you can kind of decide which side you want to be your front, which side you want to be your back, either way. Okay, now we have this little cap piece, and you'll notice that there is a tab on this. So I'm going to go ahead and apply my glue onto this tab. Now, again, this is glitter going on glitter. So I'm going to actually go a little bit heavier with the glue here. This is one of those exceptions. I'm going to thin this out, make sure that it is on the entire surface. And this piece should be symmetrical, so what we should be able to do is take the other end of it and just pop it right on there and just press down so this thing remains flat as it dries, and then it'll pop back into shape. I did pre-fold everything in this project, as should you. Okay, and I am going to be extra patient with this because I dealt with glitter long enough to know that the second you think it's done, give it another 30 seconds. Because it never really, I mean, it does eventually cure and stay together, but not when you think it is. That's my rule of thumb for that. Yeah, so the hat's pretty straightforward, and the shape of the actual compartment, the container, is relatively straight, so there's not a lot of curvature to it, which will make the assembly a breeze, and you'll see that here in just a little bit. Okay, so I think it's done, and what do? Nope, 30 more seconds. You don't ever want to rush this part when I'm working with glitter. Okay, and now at this point I would not flatten this thing out. Keep it in shape. I think if you try to flatten this thing out, it may pull apart because, especially with thicker material like this, there's going to be some tension there. So I would not mess with that. Just keep it how it is. Okay. So here's the little cap, and that's just going to go right on top. It should fit perfectly, like so. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit of glue, mostly around the center of this, because what I don't want to happen is when I put this down, I don't want the glue to squeeze out either. Well, I guess if it squeezes out through the top, it's not a big deal. So you can kind of go as deep as you want, but I would take it easy with the glue around the wider perimeter. I don't want that glue shooting out. Okay, so just take this and just run it right on there. Make sure that everything is making good contact. So maybe just press on each little section a little bit here and there, like so. And there we go. Now we kind of chopped off the top like this so that you can take a pom-pom and glue a pom-pom to the top. Now I actually purchased some larger ones because I wasn't sure. I guess these are pom-poms too. Wasn't sure if I liked the smaller one. So I did purchase a few that are a little bit bigger, I think. And I also have some that have like a little glittery element to it. Yeah, see, I do like the bigger one on there. And then I also have these. Since we're using some pearlescent papers, this might even be appropriate too. You know, I think I'm going to decide on that later, but you're going to want to hot glue that on top just for good measure, just to make sure that everything stays in place. But aside from this little added embellishment, this little holly and berry, now, by the way, I did ink this, and then what you want to do is just fold it at the crease all the way up to the tip, like so. Just give that a good squeeze to give that a nice dimensional look. The little berries here, I did ink them with a little bit of purple, actually, because none of my reds really made a difference when I tried to ink with a red ink. It didn't really do anything. So I went with a purple to kind of just darken the perimeter of the berries. So you want to match those up. And when we actually have our little gnome completed, what we're going to do is just take and apply. You can either glue it down flat, use a little foam square or a 3D Zot, and we're going to attach this right to the hat just to give it a cool little festive little touch. Okay, so the hat's done, and at this point we can start putting together the main structure for our gnome. Okay, so a few things we can do before we get into the main assembly here. We have these little triangular pieces with some tabs, as well as these pieces here and these pieces here. These are going to be for the arms. And what we're going to do is we're going to take two of these, find two that are mirrored, and we're going to glue them back to back like this so that we have glitter on both sides. Okay. So go ahead and begin applying your glue to just one of the sides, and then grab another piece, and we're just going to sandwich them together to make one solid piece with glitter or whatever color you're using on both sides. Okay, we'll do the same thing with the other one. We have some little boots that we need to put together as well. And this is definitely going to be one of those, I don't know if you're going to make a bunch of these. They're not really, I don't think they're really intended to be mass produced, although I've been pleasantly surprised with some of the projects from our site that have been mass produced, so who am I to say? But yeah, this one's a little more involved. And it's one of the more special sort of one-off projects that you make for that special someone. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of that red and just kind of hit the edge of that. You can see the white core. And actually, you know what? I don't know why I'm doing that, because this is actually going to be hidden inside of this piece. Okay, so what we want to do, we're going to have the thumbs. One's going to be for one side, one's going to be for the other side. And we're just going to glue this in like so that the hand's just sticking out like this. Okay, so just like that. And we have a little white piece that we're going to put on there as well. But for now, all you want to do, and again, this is glitter going on paper, so we may need to be a little more patient. Okay, so I'm going to say that this is the left arm, in which case you want the side that this side is going to be facing us, and we want to tuck that in, make sure it's centered, and just press and hold that in place. Take a look from the inside. It might be a little bit easier to make sure that you've got it nice and centered. You can press that down, so that looks like that. Okay, I'll leave that alone for now. And if this is my left arm, and this is going to be my right, in which case I want to make sure that I put this one in like this. Okay, so I just have to remember to put my glue on this side and pop that in on this side, or this half. Make sure you're not seeing the straight edge, it's just above the hand, and get that nice and centered as well. Looks pretty good. Take a look from the front. Okay, just see the little glove, and press that down. Okay, let's be patient while that sets. And I am deciding whether to put the white piece on now or after we get it glued into place. I don't think it really matters. Yeah, it really shouldn't matter. Okay, but that's going to go on like this. So you know what, I am going to wait until we actually put this into the main structure. So let's hold off on that for now, because I feel like that's going to wiggle around a little bit. Let's put together his shoes real quick. Okay, you can see that there's a series of little markers on there. One is for the top part of the bottom of his shoe, and that is just going to get glued flush around the top, but you also want to make sure that it's level, and that's why we have the little score marks there for you. There we go. And then we'll add the little part for the heel, just like that, and pop that into place. Now this is going to be, of course, we're going to add this to the main structure once it's all constructed. Just nice to get things out of the way. I did ink this stone color, the dark gray with a little bit of black. We'll put that off to the side and repeat the same process here for the other shoe. Okay, pop that into place like so. There we go. And then we'll take the bottom part, the heel, and put that into place. Make sure again that that is flush with the bottom and the sides, and just try to keep it nice and level using those score marks. Now before we begin, one thing I want to mention here is there's two options for the nose. One is you can get yourself a little styrofoam ball. It's 1.4 inches in diameter. I cut it in half using my hot wire cutter, and I just painted it and tried to match it as close as I could to the peach sherbet. I'm not a master of mixing paint colors, but I think that's pretty close, and I'm okay with it. So I'm going to use a dimensional nose for this, but if you're not using a dimensional nose, you're going to have these two pieces, and you're just going to glue this. In my case, this is Encore Peach Sherbet is the color, and we're going to glue that onto a piece of white pearlescent to thicken it up, and also add this little element here, which is essentially just a little reflection of light on the nose to give it a dimensional look. I did ink this as well. Okay, so you're going to be using one or the other. You're not going to be using both. Okay, so decide which one you want to do, and let's hop right into the assembly. Okay, so main structure time. You have 6 of these pieces, and they are all numbered using our special numbering system. It's basically Roman numerals until you get to the number 4. And the number 4 is four marks in the shape of a square. Okay, so that's 4. This is 5. And this is 6. Okay, so we have a total of 6 pieces like this. I'm going to start with 1 and 2. Doesn't really matter where we start. It's going to be a series of a repetitive series of gluing triangular tabs to your neighbors. Make sure that you do go through and pre-fold everything at the score marks. With this first one, it's important that we make sure that the top of each of these pieces is lined up so it's nice and flat up at the top. You don't want to do it like this because it's going to give you kind of a V shape. So you want to sort of angle it a little bit, because naturally it's going to go in this little circle here. And then just take this side here and butt it right up to the score marks. You don't want to go over them. You're going to get it right next to, or slightly, if you can imagine getting this piece directly on half of the score mark. That's kind of like what we're aiming to do here. Now that would probably require a microscope to confirm, but just do your best. Okay, I always like to thin that glue out so we don't get a bunch of glue spilling out everywhere. And this is going to be the process here for the next few minutes. Just make sure everything is nice and lined up and apply pressure to each of the tabs. We're going to work our way down all the tabs and then grab the next piece and continue through this process. There's going to be a little bit of variation here and there with the shapes and sizes of tabs, but essentially the process is going to be the same until we create our final container. So this is typically where I'll try to share some little tips as we go along the way, but if you want, you can pause here. Now you can see I'm moving this out of the way so it's easier for me to get my hand in there. And sometimes that's not even the best method, but whatever works. When you get to trying to attach the center tabs, it's a little bit difficult to get your hand in there. You can always, for now at least, flip this over and press down on your surface to help you. Okay, and this guy naturally kind of comes out like a little triangle, or a pyramid, I guess you could say. So that's the overall shape we're looking for. Okay, but so it is now, boy, it's crazy how it's almost Halloween. I haven't really had a lot of time to just kind of chat during an assembly because everything's been it's been kind of different and very engaging with new concepts and I guess you could say in some ways new elements that we've not done in the past. But yeah, it's I think is it the 28th of October already? It's crazy. I have a soon-to-be 2-year-old that I get to have a party for. He's blabbing a lot lately. He's turned into a little human. It's cute. It's also a little bittersweet because I know he's just becoming a big boy, and I'll make sure when I put together his little montage of his year 1 to share it with everyone in the group. I know I made a little montage last year. I guess that's year 2, not year 1. You guys saw year 1. But boys, he's growing like a weed. Very smart boy. Very proud of him. But again, I'm sure so many of you have experienced with your own kids. It's just kind of bittersweet seeing them get all big and, you know. All right, so now I have 1 and 2 together. We're going to grab piece number 3. So it's basically a Roman numeral 3. And we're just going to repeat the same process, starting at the top. You don't have to start at the top. You can start at the bottom if you'd like. It doesn't really make a difference, I don't think. But just take your time on this process. This is probably the most tedious. I wouldn't even call it difficult. Aside from that, Been a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes here in Dreaming Tree Land. Hopefully we'll be able to share some of that excitement with you guys soon enough. And yeah, a lot of fun stuff here. I feel like we're also putting out some of our better work the last few months. I really loved that lantern. I know that some of you are a little hesitant to play with vellum and printing vellum and such, but I think you'll learn to kind of like it, because it really adds an element that you wouldn't be able to achieve without adding an additional medium. So now this piece here is cut kind of funky, this tab. It doesn't have as much surface area. It's because we had to cut it so that you had room to slide these little hands in place. So just be kind of careful with this. Down here at the bottom, that real thin area, just press on it lightly. It'll stick. And then I would probably just give it a few extra seconds to make sure that it has a good hold before you move on. You can also put that on your surface and press down just to make sure. You can see we needed to kind of cut away at those tabs so that when we put the hands in, it can go all the way through. Otherwise, you'd be pushing it up against nothing and it wouldn't go through. So kind of had to do that. And this is where you want to also be careful if you are folding this up out of the way to apply your glue to the next tab. Do it carefully. Just make sure that it's all set before you do that. Otherwise, you may risk detaching it from the tab, which we don't want to do, obviously. Okay. And making good progress there. About halfway done with the structure. Luckily, because of the shape, the little panel overlays, the decorative panels that we're going to put on, they don't need to be trained or anything like that. You don't have to worry about doing anything. Everything's going to be flat and straight for the most part. For those of you that made our little witch cauldron recently, you had to take the panels and kind of shape them and add some curvature to them as you put them onto the main structure, which can be challenging sometimes, for sure. But nothing's impossible. And here we go. Okay, so 3 together. Find piece number 4. That's the little 4 markers in the shape of a square. Here's piece number 3. And this one's going to go right on here. We're just going to keep on trucking here. And before you know it, we'll be putting some panels on and our cute little gnome's going to be coming together for us. Okay. So aside from that, just business as usual. Life is good. Didn't get a chance to really enjoy the fall colors as much as usual this year. We went up north in September instead of October, just because I think we realized that, well, especially with a 2-year-old, keeping a 2-year-old on a pontoon in the Northwoods, when it's, not the warmest out, is not really fun for them. So one of these days we'll get back up there for the fall colors. Our colors here have been a little bland, and I think that's because of the lack of moisture we've had over the summer. I'd be curious, not that I want to chop down a tree to tell or to see, but I'd love to see the tree rings from this past summer and how little our trees grew, at least girth-wise. I think vertically, I've planted a bunch of maple trees. I'm trying to get more trees on my property here, and there's some that are growing well vertically, but I can tell that their bones are still kind of skinny. But I guess that's what happens, even though I tried to water them, but it's okay. I don't know how many of you are into that sort of thing. I would say that probably a lot of you are into gardening and nature, otherwise probably wouldn't find the beauty in paper crafting. And we are all human, obviously. I'm sure there's something to that, but when I try to get my hands on a beautiful ginkgo tree, there's a small town very close to where I live. We actually we stole their city name since we don't have a post office, but it's St. Charles. Actually, well, it's Geneva, St. Charles area, Illinois, and in their downtown area they have a handful of ginkgo trees. And I just remember driving through there. It's probably last year around peak fall, and I just saw the most vibrant yellow on a tree I've ever seen in my life. I had to take a picture of it, and of course, with how amazing our phones are now, I zoomed in and I noticed that the leaves were not your typical, maple or any of those typical trees that you see here in the Midwest as far as deciduous trees go. And I asked I guess you can call him my arborist, what kind of tree that was. He said, "Oh, that's a ginkgo." I was like, "Do you have any of those?" And unfortunately, he does not. So might have to reach out to someone else, but I'd love to get a couple of those planted on my property just to add a little pop of yellows. I guess some more into the reds and oranges, but when you see that color, boy, it really pops, especially this time of year. There's this beautiful gradient where the inner part of the leaf is just this beautiful green that slowly fades into that yellow color. It's just, you just have to, you stop in your tracks when you see it, or at least I do. But I guess in some ways I'm a bit of a tree hugger, so, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Okay, so I've got 2 more to go here, almost done. That looks nice, very nice. All right, so that's piece 4. Let's find number 5. And we numbered these just to make sure that you get them in the right order, mostly because of the little slits for our hands, for our little Gnome Santa. All right, so 2 more to go. Let's get this going here. Okay. And get that lined up. Just take your time with this. This is the most important part of your assembly here, because if you don't take your time on this, it's going to come out wonky, and this really sets the tone for the rest of the project. Cool thing is if you're off a little bit, even with the application of the panels, the decorative panels, the beard is so full that it's going to cover up a lot of those little imperfections, which is nice. So don't sweat it. Have some fun. And while you're making this, just think about who you're going to give this to and the reaction that they're going to get. And it looks like our Instagram today is blowing up with the new fans, so thank you, whoever you are out there. That's that little cat sound. Anytime we get a new follower on Instagram, I changed it to make a little cat meow. Oops. Okay. We're getting close here, guys. Ladies and gents. Hope everyone's doing well. I feel like with all the behind the scenes stuff, haven't been on track with releases every 2 weeks. It's been plus a few days. So there are days where I kind of come in here and I feel a little out of practice, so to speak, but typically after the first project, and I'll get all 3 done in a day, it does help that I have things pre-cut from the day before, so I'm not actually cutting and assembling everything in one day. It's a little bit of prep the previous day and then assembly the next day. But yeah, with the exception of actually, you know what? Maybe I even did the advent calendar the 3 building advent calendar in one day as far as assembly. I don't see why I wouldn't have. But the cutting process for that one was definitely an undertaking. But I was pleasantly surprised with how many people submitted and posted pictures of theirs. I know you guys love doing the buildings, and I'm thinking that maybe we do another building for Christmas this year. Maybe another mega statement piece of some sort. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So although we only have one piece left here, it is still 2 sections of tabs to glue down. Okay, so without further ado, let's keep on trucking here, keep on pushing, because we're almost there. Start by, most importantly, anchoring the first tab for the next section. And what's nice about this is, since it's a larger piece, sometimes when we're working on a shape like this, it tends to want to kind of wrap in around itself, and there's like this tension where you're constantly pushing the other half out of the way. But this one's a good size, so we don't have to do that. And you can certainly shrink this thing down a little bit. We wanted to make sure that it was roughly in the same ballpark as far as the size of our other little, I guess we'll call them busts. You know, the snowman, the witch, the turkey. They're roughly in that same ballpark. Actually, it's probably about the same size as the turkey, with the exception of the hat. I think that's a little bit taller. And it makes sense because it's a gnome's hat. So we didn't want to cut it short. I don't know what's going on right now on Instagram, but I love it. Okay, let's pull that back. Again, we've got this little funky tab here. So just take your time with this one especially. I want this to be making nice contact throughout. There we go. Line that up. Take your time here. And again, there's that little tiny little section. Just try to make sure you get your thumb or whatever finger back there and push up against that. Make sure it gets a good hold. Thank goodness this is cardstock on cardstock. And I may need to actually put this down flat. You're not going to be able to see this right now. That's okay. Just bear with me. There we go. I'm going to grab a little dowel and get into that little nook there. Okay, so again, with this little piece here that contains the slit, just make sure that it is nice and set. If you are using the same method here where you're kind of peeling back the next layer so that you can more easily apply your glue, make sure that it's dry before you do that. And we're on the home stretch here. Let's get this tab in place. We've got one more, and then just have to close it up. Okay, be very gentle. Peel that back. Got one more tab here. And then really the rest of this is just putting his hair in place. We're going to be taking and sort of training the hair to make it flowing so it's not so flat. And that is going to be sort of an up to you sort of thing on how you want to do that. I don't know what's going on today. Okay, there we go. And finally, now with this last section, as we begin to close things up, we may need to utilize a different method of putting our glue in place, because we're not going to be able to fold back any of these sections. So if you're new to Dreaming Tree and this is one of your first projects, one thing that I always tell all of our dreamers is, if you have scrap paper that is kind of too small to utilize for additional cuts, hold on to it and cut little strips. Okay, here, let me show you what I mean here. I just got a series of little strips like this. There's no specific like size that it needs to be. I'm going to use those potentially. I'm going to see how much room we have in here. I think we probably have enough room to get our nozzles in there. So obviously you see we still have 4 more tabs. So this thing's big enough to where I can get my glue bottle in there without having to move anything around. But there's that tab. We're just going to push that up against the inside and just continue the same process here. I like to look at it from the outside just to make sure that I'm getting everything lined up as accurately as possible, obviously. We'll press that down. But what I was going to say is you can take, and I'll show you how to do it once. You can take a scrap piece of paper, throw a little bit of glue on there. There's no glue on the back of this. You can rub that on your surface without having to worry about it, but you could actually paint the glue onto the tab as well instead of getting your nozzle in there, and that works as well. So it's an option. Okay. Now that wasn't as clean, but we have panels that are going to go over this anyway, so if you get a little bit of glue that squirts out, it's not the end of the world. But again, because of the way that this thing tapers out, especially at the bottom, you have plenty of room to get well, if you're using the same glue bottle that I am, this is the 2-ounce Scotch Quick Dry. It should fit in there no problem. And we just keep on cruising here, doing the same thing. Just like that. Okay, there we go. And that just leaves one more tab. We'll flare that out, apply our glue. Just like that. And close up the last little piece. There we go. Awesome. All right. All right, so now we have this little piece here, has a little L etched into it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to shove this in there completely and pull it back out right to the bottom. And this is kind of what we call a skeleton piece. And that's going to help keep this thing in its desired and ultimate shape so that when we put the bottom on, it's a lot easier, and it kind of helps stabilize it as well. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to pick a side, any side, and flare out one of the tabs. You don't need to coat the entire tab with glue here. I would actually just focus it more on the center. Okay, and then take and make sure that this is flush against this side, centered, and just press that up against the tab. Okay, then we'll go over to the complete opposite side of where we just put our glue and do the same thing. Just put a little bit of glue on there like that. Pull the skeleton piece out. You can use your table too if you want. There we go. All right, so 2 sides are done. Let's go over to any side at this point, doesn't matter. Apply your glue. Make sure it's up against the edge here. At this point, it should pretty much center itself. Now we'll go to the opposite side of where we just applied our glue and apply glue there. Do the same thing, just like that. And that just leaves 2 more sides. Nice and thin. And the final side. Okay. There we go. Cool. All right, so now that we have that in place, here is the bottom. And I'm going to put that down now. And so what we can do here, now that little skeleton piece is keeping these all nice and upright. We'll go ahead and apply our glue to the tabs. I'm going a little bit thicker here because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and spread this out to the very edge into the corners with my finger, just like that. I wouldn't worry about the inside perimeter. I guess that's kind of an oxymoron, inside perimeter. Add a little bit there. And chances are, because of the amount of surface area we're working with here, we're going to probably have to paint a little bit of glue onto the bottom here to make sure that everything is nice and seamless. So go ahead and line that up, and don't worry about a little bit of glue popping out here or there, not a big deal. We've got panels going over this eventually, but just kind of keep running your finger. Don't push down too hard because you'll end up crushing this thing, but very gently, just keep running your finger along there. And then you can also take and press down on the tabs from the inside to help the rest of that tab make contact. All right, I will flip it back over and check our seams here. If you have any little areas where you have a little gap, we can always go in and paint a little extra glue. But this is where having a little extra glue and making it wet helps ensure that you can go around this thing a handful of times and just kind of push down at those seams and get everything to sit nice and flat, which worked. And that looks really good. Okay, now if you do have any gaps, I have a tiny one there that I normally wouldn't worry about, but I do want to demonstrate this real quick. For an area like that, grab yourself a scrap piece of paper and just throw a little bit of glue right at the very edge of it. And then literally, I would have the glue facing down and then just poke it right into that seam as far as you can, and then just press down. And that little bit of glue will do its job and close it off nicely for you. Okay. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. We need to find, well, first off, there's going to be a panel like this with no slits. That's going to be your front. Okay, and then you just need to find the other panels. Now you can see this one here. This one's going to go right here, and it needs to match up with the little slits here for the arm. Okay, so you can put that one there. And then this one's going to go here because the slits are here. Okay, then after that, you're going to want to find another piece where the slits are on the left side. And then this one's going to go over here. And then the one on the back doesn't have any slits, just like the one on the front. So kind of do it in this order. But we're going to start with the front first. Okay, and the idea here is we're going to glue, well, basically this whole thing is just going to go on nice and flat like this. Okay, just like that. And if you want, just to give it a little bit of a curve, you can take a dowel and just very gently, starting from the bottom, take your panel, place it between the dowel and your fingers, and then just kind of run it through just to give it a slight curve. Very slight, because that's really all it is. And that will help it from kind of fighting to, keep it from fighting the fact that it needs to go into this shape. And you can see how nice and flat that is sitting there. So we'll go ahead and apply our glue to our first panel here. And nice and easy. Try to make sure you get that glue out to the very edge, because we want the edges to look nice and seamless. Okay, so here I'm going to start in the center and get this nice and flush with the top of the main structure. And then also make sure it's centered so that as you kind of place it down, that it stays within the confines of that section. And just kind of work your way from the top very slowly, sort of running your fingers down the edges, making sure that it sits nice and flat. You can actually put that down on your surface too. Just very gently kind of rock it from top to bottom and press down and get that to stay on there nicely. As flush as possible. That looks good. Okay, so I'm going to take and just run the dowel through a little bit, angle it a bit. Make sure you're grabbing the correct piece so that the little slits for the hands match up. Okay, and then we're going to pop that on there just like we did the first one. And I'm going to work my way from the center to the right, back to the left, and just kind of alternate back and forth, just so that I'm kind of spacing things out as evenly as possible as we're applying these panels. Sometimes if you kind of go clockwise all the way, you end up not keeping it evenly distributed as you're applying it to the panels. I'm not sure how else to explain that, but you gotta trust me on that. There we go. And just do your best to make sure it's making good contact. I'm kind of just pressing on each of the sections one at a time. And that looks perfect. Now remember, towards the top here, we're gonna have a whole layer of hair. So if your seams are not like perfect, I wouldn't worry about it too much. That looks nice so far. All right, now I'm gonna head over to this side and grab this piece, make sure that the little slits match up. And I am hitting this with a little bit of black ink, only because this is a Cartabella paper and they have a white core in there, which I'm not a big fan of. So try to hide that whenever possible. But let me clean off this nozzle. Okay. And again, make sure you're distributing that glue out to the edge of these panels, if possible. And make it flush with the top. Again, making sure you're getting it centered. For this section, make sure that you're getting those little slits aligned correctly and accurately. And just press them into place. Again, I'm gonna just kind of, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections. I'm gonna do 5 presses with each section, because as I do that, it wants to kind of lay on its own plane, I guess you could say. You don't want to press in between the 2 sections. You want to kind of focus the pressure on each section individually. Okay, so that actually turned out really nice. And it's an interesting shape. I don't think we've done this shape before. All right, so now I can go either over here or over here, but either way, let's just make sure that we have the correct panel. And I'm going to take and just run my dowel through, give it a little bit of a curve, and apply my glue. There we go. Get that excess off there. Flush with the top, centered, and just lay that down. There we go. Should eventually, ultimately end up flush with the bottom as well, if you've got it lined up correctly, and if you assembled the main structure accurately, which I'm sure you did. The shape isn't too difficult at all. There we go. Beautiful. All right, we'll head over to this side. Again, make sure that you grab the piece that has the little slits in the correct location. I'm gonna hit that white core with a little bit of ink. It really just awkwardly stands out sometimes. Sometimes it's super subtle and you don't notice it, but I think I've just been doing this for so long that I see little nuances here and there that maybe some people don't. So I guess consider it a more advanced tip if you want. Come on. There we go. Okay, same thing. starting at the top, right to the top, nice and centered. There we go. And it should end up being flush with the bottom. There we go. And there we go. Take and press down from the inside. Voila. Awesome. Looks good. We got one left. Okay, let me hit this with some ink. And this is a kind of a muscle memory thing. I'm not trying to distress this too much. It's already kind of a dark piece of paper, so I don't want to muddy it up even more, but again, mostly just to get that white core to disappear. And that will help kind of blend this together even more, since we've got a dark cardstock here, a dark paper, if there are any little discrepancies. And so here, actually, you can see here, this one, I did not ink there. And you can see the difference. It pops, it stands out, where here, I did ink it. And that's okay, because it's on the side. You're not really gonna see it in my final photo, but there you go. Live demonstration of how something so simple can make such a big difference in your end result. And I'm just gonna leave it. You guys won't see that in the final photo, but just kind of interesting. Okay, last one, going in place, flush at the top. Make sure it's making good contact throughout, all the way down. Nice and centered. It should terminate down at the bottom, flush with the bottom. Looking good. And then I'll take and very gently just press that down. So it makes good contact throughout. And there we go. Okay, let's pop our hat on there and see what that's starting to look like as far as our colors go. I think those work, especially once we get the white on there. Take a look at our pom-pom. Yeah, it's gonna work. Hey, it could have been a little brighter maybe, but I think it'll work. Okay, so we're gonna put the belt on here, and these score marks that are here, you want to align the belt so that the top part of the belt goes right underneath the score marks. And you'll notice that the little folds here for each of the sections should match up perfectly with these edges as well. So let's, just like we did with the hat, let's anchor the center first. Okay, and again, it's going to go underneath the little score marks. There's one on each end. Okay, make sure that the little folds match up too, and then just press that down into place. And as you're doing that, just make sure that that looks all nice and lined up as well. Okay, so that turned out nice. Press that down if you want to. You can also stick your hand inside to push up to help it make better contact. There we go. And then we can flare back one end, apply our glue. I'll worry about the tabs later after I actually get this into place. Follow the little score marks as you press this down, just like that. Okay. And then peel back the little tab, put a little bit of glue on there, and then press that over onto that side. Nice and easy. Then we'll head over here, flare this back. Same process, nice and easy with the glue. We don't need a lot here. And follow the score mark as closely as you can. It's going to kind of help us keep it on the correct plane. I did end up putting a little bit of glue on that tab there, so I'm pressing and holding that into place, and there you can see how that's supposed to look. And we'll flip this over, go to the back, and just have to make sure that we're putting this on the correct way. It's going to go like this, again, just below the score mark. And before we anchor that center part, let's just make sure that everything meets up correctly. And there you go. Okay. So let's grab this piece, apply our glue to the middle section. And bring this back. Again, going below the score mark. Match up the folds as well. There we go. It should be nice and straight. Just like that. There we go. And then while still kind of applying pressure to that center part, you can flare back one of the ends, apply a nice little amount of glue all the way out to the very edge. Kind of spread that out a little bit, and then use those markers as a guide, but technically, as long as it matches up with the other half of it, you know you're in good shape. There we go. Just like that. That should be good. We'll flare this back, apply our glue, and close it up. There we go. There we go. Okay. So now, head back to the front. We have a little overlay for the belt. You can take and just put a few little dots of glue on that. Nice and thin. We don't want it squirting out, especially on this darker paper. Don't need to blemish that. There we go. Okay, so here's how we're going to lay this out. This little piece here with the 3 tabs, this is going to be right in the front. It's going to be our first layer. Okay, and this piece with the 2 tabs on each side with the 4 little strands is going to go in the back. We're just going to kind of work our way around here. Okay. Okay, so this is our front, this is our back. Okay, and going towards the front, we're going to find this piece next. Has a tab on one side. It's going to go like this. So just follow along with me here, and we'll get it. Okay, and then we're going to have this piece. Where'd it go? Okay, so this piece is going to go next, and this is the first layer, okay? And that's going to meet up here. So now we just need to find essentially the reverse of this. So we're looking for this one here, okay? And then we're going to find the reverse of that other one, and the tab's going to be going to the left, which is this piece here. Okay, so next you're going to find this piece. This is the last one with the tab, and that's going to go here, like so, okay? And then, of course, for the front of our Santa, we're going to have these 3. They're actually numbered 1, 2, and 3, so you can put those off to the side for now. All we need to do at this point is just find the overlays for these, okay? And now for this one, it's going to be this piece, like that. And we just want the mirror of that for this section here. Okay, heading to the left, we're going to find, you can see how these pieces are essentially mirrors, okay? And they're going to go like this. This one's going to go here. And this one's going to go here. And then this piece is for the back, and that's going to go on there like that. Okay, so what we are going to do is we're going to kind of start from the center and work our way around and just leave them like this. We're going to grab the center piece, find the center. Of course, that's going to be the section above the belt. And we're going to glue that on flat like this. I wouldn't worry too much about training this piece. It's rather small, and I don't know if it's really going to help that much. But let's anchor the center by putting glue on just the middle of this. Make sure it's flush with the center, or flush with the top, I should say. And then make sure that these tabs sit comfortably over the edge. And just take your finger and run it down all the way. You can actually press down from the inside too if you'd like. Just very gently. Make sure there's no gap at the bottom there. Okay, and then we're going to take and flare back these tabs and get them glued down. Again, another little fail-safe to make sure that we don't end up with a bunch of gaps everywhere. So I'll be covered up eventually. Just do one at a time, just to be safe and not try to do too much at once. There we go. And get that one in place like that. And let's peel these back. And press that over. Press that over. And the last one. There we go. Okay, so next we're going to go to the back. Okay, just keep these all in place. And we're going to glue down this back section because we've got 4 tabs on here as well. And before we do that, you can take a dowel, place it at the base of one of the strands of hair, lift up the hair about 45 degrees, and then just run that dowel through. And you can also do it the other way so that the hair wraps towards the main structure. And that's just to kind of give the hair some life. This is going to get glued right here, like so. And we don't need to put any glue on the actual strands of hair, so you can stop applying just right before you get to those little strands. And I just want to make sure that we're on the opposite side here, flush with the top, and get that nice and centered onto your structure. And just leave the hair alone. Let it just kind of do its thing. Press that down. And then of course we'll need to glue the tabs down. So go ahead and flare those back. Just a tiny little bit of glue. And press that over onto the next section there. Do the same thing here. Oh, and on this white pearlescent, I did go through and ink them with a little bit of a light blue. Almost like a turquoise, I guess you could say, or a frosted blue, a light blue. We'll do the same thing here. Don't worry about that little boo-boo there. It kind of went out of order, but you won't, I promise. Okay, get that tab glued down, and the last one here. And press that into place. Be patient with it, especially if you're using a pearlescent white like I am. Okay, so the front and back are in place. Okay. Now, starting from the back here, we're going to grab this piece. Okay, now this piece is going to go down like this, and then we have another tab that's going to go over here. And we can definitely take and kind of flare this out. I wouldn't do it too much. You don't want it to be sticking out too much. Just want to give it a little bit of dimension. And just like we did with that back piece, apply your glue to the main part of this little panel. And you don't need to worry about putting glue on the little strands of hair. Get that flush with the top. Make sure the edges meet nicely and that this tab here lands nicely onto this surface. And just press along the edge there. Just like that. And then you can flare out this tab. Or did I already I put glue on it already, I guess. Okay, that's nice. Okay, so now we're heading back towards the front. And this piece is going to go on like this. Okay, now you can see there, this hair. You can take this and also curl this a little bit. You don't have to do it too much. And if you have a few that you want to curl the other way, you can do that too. Okay, so take a look at the positioning before we start applying glue at how it needs to sit. It's going to go like this. So you can kind of see where you need to put glue and where you don't. We definitely need it up at the top here, so we want that to be nice and flush. A little bit towards the inside, and then just a little bit around that area there. Flush with the top, use that as your initial guide. And then make sure that the edges meet up and look as seamless as possible. And it's possible also that I didn't get enough glue down here. You want to make sure it's glued up to this part here at least. There we go. Actually, I think I did. I got a kitty cat that is telling me, this is a real cat, it's not my little counter behind me. Is it lunchtime, buddy? Are we gonna get some food? I'm almost done, okay? I'm almost done. You're fine. You can wait a minute. Okay, so now we're gonna head over to this side here. Starting from the back, one panel over, we're gonna find this piece that has a little tab here, and that's gonna get glued down like so. Let's not forget that we can flare the hair out a little bit. I'm gonna do this one the other way. And then this one's gonna come out. And same thing. Just keep your glue within this area here. We'll put glue on the tab here after we get it in place. Get that flush with the top. This tab should sit nicely on the section next to it. Press that down all the way around. There we go. I'm giving our gnome some Santa hair. Pretty cute. All right, we can flare this tab out. Apply your glue there and close that up. And that just leaves one more first layer, which is this piece here. Okay, and that's gonna go like this. Okay, make sure we get it flush with the top, and then as I mentioned earlier, you're gonna need to get your glue down to about here on this section here. You can see that I started to glue this and I ripped it off because I'd realized that I did it out of order. I need to do it in order based on the little additional tabs that we added to keep things looking seamless in case part of your assembly didn't go as planned. We'll focus on getting this seam nice and clean first, since we're going to be seeing most of it from the front, and then work your way back. There we go. That looks great. Okay, now let's take another look at this. Well, he is starting to come together. I love it. Okay, so now, so here is the piece for the back. Okay, and again, you can take and curl this up a little bit. Apply your glue to about there. Flush with the top. Centered, obviously. And press that into place. You can always go back in and train your paper to come out even more if you want. It's up to you. Okay, so this was like this. So this one here is going to go right here next. Okay, we can take this and train his hair out just a little bit. I don't want to overdo it because I don't think his hair is that crazy. Okay, and pop that in there, get it nice and centered, flush with the top, just kind of layering his hair. Okay, so that's the back. Let's go over to the other side, which is this one here. Train that out, flip it over, let's apply our glue. Okay, and that's going there, just like that. Beautiful. All right, so that just leaves these two pieces. And again, this one's going to go flush at the front like this. So we can take and train these out just very gently. You don't need to overdo it. And you can see here, let's take a look again. It needs to be flush with the top. We want it to be hugging this seam up to the front to about this point here. We want that all to be flat. So just before it starts to kind of curve in, you want all that to sit as flat as possible. Just like that. along the front. Let me just be very careful with this. This is kind of the more important part of it. I want to get it right. There we go. And then the main part of the mustache and the beard, we're going to kind of finish things off a little bit and hide some additional seams, and everything kind of overlaps each other so that you don't see too much of the seam. Try to make it as natural looking as possible. Okay, so this one's going to go on the left side on the front. Same thing applies here as far as your glue placement. Definitely at the top and along the inside edge, right about, it's about there where it starts to curve. Flush with the top, get it right up to that seam, like so. Perfect. All right, so now let's take a look at this little fella here. Okay, and we have our little mustache. I'm going to wrap the mustache. I'm going to train the mustache away from me so that it kind of wraps around the body. Okay, so it's kind of going backwards. Okay, this is the second part of the beard. I'm also going to kind of train it in, and then this third part I'm going to train out, like so. And we're going to glue these in order, kind of backwards though, actually. So I'm going to take piece number 2 and glue it to 3. Okay, and try to get that nice and centered. Use that round ball at the top, half ball I should say. Okay, and it should meet pretty much like that. Press that down, only gluing it right at that circle. Another little bit of glue onto the number 2. And you can see here there's a little score mark that's like an upside down V. That's to help you place the mustache part accurately. Just get that aligned nicely. And now depending on, again, if you are using a paper nose, then you're just going to take and glue this on like this. Try to make sure that it's centered. And you're going to glue that on like that. So put glue here, put that on there. But I'm using my painted nose, and I'm going to hot glue that once I actually get this all in place. And this, for the sake of adding a little bit of extra dimension, I actually am going to use some foam squares to get this onto my body. I think one foam square will do. The rest of it should be just kind of floating anyway. And what I would do here is put the hat down, and the nose should be just below the hat, nice and centered. And just press that into place very gently, like so. There we go. Okay, you can see when we add the nose, how that's going to look. Okay, so as you can see here, I actually put my styrofoam nose in place. I think that looks great. Either way, the paper nose that we included looks nice, but I do think that it kind of helps round out the project by adding that styrofoam nose. So if you can do that, it'd be awesome. And little finishing touches that we have for this. Obviously we have some little shoes, and we have to put let's take this off for a second. The way that this works with the little arms is what we're going to do. We're going to take and slide these little tabs through these slits. And we're going to glue them to the inside of our structure. So this one here is going to go on like this. Just make sure you get the right one on the correct side. Okay. And the reason I opted to wait to glue down the little white strips was just because I wanted to make sure that I had the shape correct. Okay, so it kind of naturally will take the shape that it needs to. You'll see the tabs in there. I'm going to do one. I don't want to mess this up and make it all messy in there. But you can see I put glue on one of the tabs, and then we're going to take that tab and press it up against the inside of the structure like that. Okay, I'm using a little dowel to do that. I'm going to use my fingers to do it here in just a second, but you can see that it is pressed up against the inside, and that's going to hold it in place. You're going to do that with all 4 tabs on the inside. Make sure those tabs are all the way in. And just put a little dot of glue on those. And then I'm kind of looking at it from the outside just to make sure that everything's sitting nice and flush. I'll press that up against the inside of the structure. And then we have 2 little tiny ones that you want to get some glue on as well. And I'm just going to do both of them here. Just spread that glue around. Thin it out if necessary with your finger. Kind of operating blind, so to speak. But plenty of room to get your fingers in there because of the size of the opening, so it shouldn't be a problem. And just spread those tabs apart and press them up against the inside of our little gnome body. And just give that a second to set. And there we go. Okay, so his hands are in place. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Now, before we do though, you can go ahead and take this little overlay and glue it down to give it that nice little contrast. Okay, if you want to do one half at a time, you can. I think this piece is easy enough to where you could probably just put glue on both halves. And of course, just make sure that you have the orientation correct. I'm popping it right onto that little fold. Then just press it down into place. Make sure it's nice and flush with the bottom, just like that. And give that a few seconds to set. And there we go. Okay, that looks nice. We'll do the same thing with the other arm now. Again, slide the little tabs through the slits on the front and back. Might have to move the hair out of the way, just briefly, to get those little tabs in there. There we go. And just like I said, push them in as far as it'll go. And as you're gluing the tabs down, you can kind of pull them towards you a little bit. Oops. You know what would be cool right now? I actually have one of these, a little headlamp. It's not often that we're kind of crafting in the dark like that. Okay, and I'm just taking that tab, pushing it up against the inside, making sure it's making good contact. Do the same thing with the other half. And then I put glue on all 4 of the tabs. Should be able to do that as well. If not, you can always go back in and apply a little extra just for good measure. And it looks like I got 2 out of the 4 sticking. So I'll go back and just take my time just to ensure everything is nice and secure. And one other thing I noticed was the little beard in front. I can train that a little bit more so that it gets out of the way of the little hint of gold that we have there on the belt buckle. So we can train that up a little bit more. I'll show you what I mean here in a second. Okay, so you can see here, I can take this and just train it up a little bit more so that just a little bit of that gold pops out. Worst case scenario, you can always take this. Now I just used a foam square. Take this and gently peel it off. Just bring it up a tad so that a little bit more of that belt buckle's visible. Okay, let's take a look and see how the hat fits. Yeah, it still fits nicely. So you can adjust that however you need to. Okay, let me get that other white strip on here on the other arm. And then we just have to put our little boots in place. And finally, our little, well, this is not the correct hat. Our little holly and berry Okay, there we go. Just match that up. Should be flush with the bottom. Careful of the hair. He's been working on his hair. Don't want to mess it up. There's that. Beautiful. Okay. Oh, by the way, don't forget to take and kind of squish that in a little bit so it sits better. Don't forget to take some hot glue, which I need to fire up here, to attach your pom-pom to the top. And then this little guy here, let me tilt this back a little bit so you can see. I'm going to put him on this little piece here, just kind of flared back. You can hot glue that too if you want. I think I'm just going to hot glue it. I don't want to add dimension to that. There's already enough going on here. So we're going to hot glue that piece. I'm just going to put a little bit of hot glue on the back of this, just like that. Take the hat off for a second. And we'll just pop that right on there like that. There we go. And then let's get the hot glue nice and hot. Throw a little bit right at that top there, around that little rim. Kind of try to layer it a little bit. And let's grab our pom-pom, make sure it's nice and centered. And press that into place. Give that a few moments to let that hot glue really, I would just pop it on and let it sit. Make sure it's good and centered. And we'll pop that on top. I don't want to wiggle it too much so that, and let's see, how does that look? Well, my screen's kind of freaking out right now, but, oh, well, I forgot about the little feet here. So these guys here, what we're going to do, you can glue these on flat if you want, or you want them kind of in the center between the two adjacent sections. So you can either glue those down. I think I'm going to use just a series of little foam squares. Okay, so for this one here, I'll line those up along the inside edge. For this one, and again, just try to get it centered so that that little horizontal or vertical edge is kind of dissecting it in half, and then use your surface to help guide it so that it's flush with your table. And of course I put that on the wrong side. 1 second here. It's got to go on that side. There's one there and another one here. And like I said, just take the, let me move this out of the way for a second. Take this and just try to center it so it's almost like it's being cut in half by this little seam right here. Okay, that looks nice. Let's make sure it sits flat, and it does. Put our hat on. That's our little lid. And there is our super cute little gnome. So that's going to do it for our gnome gift box. I hope you guys enjoyed the process. I can't wait to see what you do with yours and the types of pattern papers and colors that you pick. But either way, I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, please visit us on our YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. While you're there, hit the little bell so you get notifications anytime we release a new project, whether it be paid or free. And if you make this or anything from our new bundle, I'd love to see it, and so would the rest of our community. So head over to your Facebook and do a search for Dreaming Tree Official. That's where you'll find myself and over 47,000 other dreamers that inspire us daily. So again, hope you had a blast, and as always, look forward to crafting with you again. Hey, thanks for crafting along with me. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, check out some of our other videos, and please consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to visit our site and check out our free SVG section, where you'll find over 140 free SVG files complete with assembly tutorials. I'll see you in the craft room.